When you think of Australia, you probably think of a successful multicultural nation, a country literally built by waves of migration. But lately, something's been shifting. That whole narrative is being challenged, right out on the streets. So today, we're going to dig into the really surprising and, frankly, rapid rise of anti-immigration sentiment across the country and figure out what's really driving it.
This message right here says it all. You're seeing this on signs held by tens of thousands of Australians rallying in cities all over the country. It's a blunt, powerful slogan that seems to fly in the face of everything Australia has stood for. So, the big question is, how on earth did a nation that prides itself on welcoming newcomers get to this point? All right, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the protests themselves, what's happening on the ground. Then, we'll get into the hard data behind this huge shift in opinion. After that, we'll unpack the four main reasons people are so unhappy, explore the clash between national values and public feeling, and finally, we'll really nail down Australia's core dilemma in all of this. Okay, so to really understand this story, we have to start on the ground, where all this anger and frustration has just spilled out into the open. These recent nationwide rallies have really brought the whole debate to a boiling point. So all across the country, we're talking tens of thousands of people marching, calling for an end to mass immigration. But what's really interesting is how specific it's become, with slogans directly targeting Indian and Chinese communities. Some flyers are even warning people that Australians are being replaced. Now, as you'd expect, government leaders have come out strongly, condemning these rallies as racist and totally against Australian values. But at the same time, we've seen counter-protesters clashing, sometimes violently, with the marchers. It's gotten really heated. So you have to wonder, is this just a few loud voices, or is something bigger going on here? To figure that out, we've got to move from the streets to the spreadsheets and actually look at the numbers that are fueling all this. And wow, this chart really illustrates the turning point we're talking about. A recent Lowy Institute poll asked Australians a simple question: is the number of migrants coming in too high, too low, or about right? And look at that. A whopping 53%, that's more than half the country, said it's too high. So this is not a fringe opinion anymore. It's gone completely mainstream. So what changed to get us here? Well, let's look at a key flashpoint: the demographic shift. The Indian-born community in Australia has seen just explosive growth. I mean, in just 1 decade, it has more than doubled. Think about that. That makes it the fastest-growing migrant group in the entire country. And to put that in perspective, the Indian-born population has now officially leapfrogged the Chinese-born community. They're now the largest overseas-born group in Australia if you don't count people from the UK. This kind of rapid change is absolutely central to understanding the public's reaction. Okay, so the numbers clearly show a massive demographic shift and a massive swing in how people feel about it. But why? What's really going on under the surface? Let's unpack the 4 key things that are fueling all this widespread discontent. It really boils down to 4 big issues, and they're all tangled together. A crazy housing crisis, growing pressure on jobs, a huge surge in the cost of living, and, these deeper fears about cultural change. First up, housing. And man, the numbers here are just mind-blowing. Take Sydney, for example. The median house price has almost doubled in a decade. It's gone from around $600,000 to nearly $1.2 million. And it's not just the price tag, it's the strain on everything else. Overcrowded public transport, packed emergency rooms, schools that are bursting at the seams. The second driver is all about the job market. Australia's unemployment rate recently hit a 4-year high. And you can see how that creates this feeling of, hey, we're all competing for fewer and fewer jobs now. And that competition is getting tougher with more people arriving. It creates this sense of being squeezed from all sides. And that brings us to the third and maybe the most immediate pressure point for people: the cost of living. This quote from a protester just says it all. Families feel like they're being priced out of their own lives. A typical family in Sydney can now easily burn through $5,000 a month just to cover the basics. And with everything from electricity to groceries going up, the anxiety is absolutely real. And then, beyond all the economic pressures, there's a fourth, much more emotional driver: this fear of cultural change. The rapid growth of migrant communities has been framed by some as a cultural invasion. And that's fueling a narrative that traditional Australian culture is being erased or replaced. So when you put all of that together, you get this huge contradiction sitting right at the heart of modern Australia. It's this fundamental conflict between the country's official identity and what a majority of its citizens are actually feeling and experiencing. I mean, just look at this. On one side, you have the official government stance, always championing cultural diversity as the nation's core strength. But then on the other side, you've got that polling data staring you in the face, showing that more than half the country thinks immigration is just too high. That is a massive disconnect.
And this table on how Australians perceive other nations is so revealing. Look at India. Favorability has dropped, and it's dropped pretty sharply, down to 51. And while China has ticked up a little bit to 37, both of them sit way below countries that people feel really positive about, like New Zealand and Japan. It kind of helps explain why these two specific groups have become the focus of so much frustration.
So, what does this all add up to? Well, it points to a core dilemma that the nation is facing, this fundamental clash between what the country needs and what its society can actually handle right now. And this is it, right here. This is the heart of the conflict. It's like a balancing act that's gone completely out of whack. On one side of the scale, you have the economic need for migration. You need people to fill skills gaps and help with an aging population. But on the other side, that need is creating this immense social strain that's weighing down housing, public services, and just social cohesion. It's an incredibly difficult balance to strike.
And this leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? The issue really isn't about migration itself, but whether the country's infrastructure and policies can expand fast enough to support it. Because when they fail to keep pace, frustration builds, and migrants, well, they become the easiest target. It's a massive challenge that Australia has no choice but to confront head-on.
A huge thanks to Alex Shong from Oz Property Strategy for the insights that made this analysis possible. Be sure to subscribe to the Oz Property Strategy YouTube channel and head over to ozpropertystrategy.com to learn more and book your free discovery call. And of course, a disclaimer applies.